Water's good enough for poor folks, Linda, my daughter's future mother-in-law, said with a loud laugh. Her words sounded so rude that I couldn't hide my discomfort. Her crude remark left me feeling uneasy, and I wondered if this was the kind of family my daughter was marrying into. Sitting nearby, Ray, my daughter's soon-to-be sister-in-law, looked over at me, her face growing pale. I gave a small, polite smile, trying to hide my emotions. My name is Sarah Robinson, and I'm turning 51 this year. Life hasn't always been easy for me. I divorced my ex-husband when my daughter Chloe was just 3 years old. The main reason for our divorce was that we simply couldn't get along anymore. He refused to work, spent most of his days drinking, and ignored all my pleas to change. No matter how much I tried to reason with him, he stayed the same. As our financial situation grew worse, I realized I didn't want that kind of life for myself or for Chloe. So I made the difficult decision to end our marriage. When we divorced, there was no child support or alimony. From that point on, it was just me and Chloe against the world. Before the divorce, I had been a housewife, but now I needed to earn a living to support us both. Raising Chloe on my own was tough, but I was determined. At first, I took on small jobs I could do from home, so I could stay close to her. The pay wasn't great, and money was always tight, but I managed. Sometimes, a day or two before payday, I would run out of money and go without food. Despite those hardships, I never gave up, and I made sure Chloe had what she needed. Over the years, Chloe grew into a smart and responsible young woman. After she graduated and started working, I finally had a bit more free time. With that extra time, I decided to focus on something I enjoyed, making handmade items. I turned my little hobby into a small business, and, to my surprise, it started doing well. For the first time in years, I felt like life was turning around. Then, something wonderful happened. Chloe got engaged. She had been dating a man named Nathan, who worked with her at the same company. Nathan was her boss and 5 years older than her. Chloe once showed me a photo of him, and he seemed like a polite, serious young man. I was relieved to see that she had chosen someone who seemed stable and dependable, a far cry from her father's bad example. One evening after dinner, Chloe approached me with a nervous look on her face. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something," she said hesitantly. Her nervous tone caught my attention. "What's wrong, Chloe?" I asked gently. "You look worried. Is everything okay?" Chloe fidgeted a little before she smiled shyly and said, "I'm going to marry Nathan." My eyes lit up with happiness. "That's wonderful news." "Congratulations, Chloe," I exclaimed. Relief washed over her face. "I'm so glad you're happy about it, Mom. I was worried you might not approve," she admitted. "Why would I not approve? You're an adult now, and if Nathan makes you happy, that's all that matters," I replied warmly. With a smile, Chloe continued, "I was hoping you could meet Nathan this weekend. I'd like you to get to know him before the wedding." "Of course. I'd love to meet him," I agreed eagerly. "Let's make it happen." The following Sunday, I waited at home for Chloe and Nathan to arrive. It was just before 10 a.m. when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see Chloe standing there with Nathan by her side. He greeted me politely, saying, "Nice to meet you, Ms. Robinson. I'm Nathan Carter, Chloe's fiancé." His politeness immediately made a good impression on me. "Come on in," I said, welcoming them into the house. As we sat down, Nathan handed me a box of fancy sweets as a gift. He then started sharing how he and Chloe met at work, speaking with a warm smile. Chloe blushed, clearly embarrassed by his enthusiasm. "Nathan, stop it. You're making me blush," she said, playfully nudging him. Watching them together made me feel hopeful for Chloe's future. However, the cheerful atmosphere shifted when Nathan suddenly asked, "By the way, is your father at work today?" His curious tone made me freeze for a moment. I glanced at Chloe, who had gone pale. I realized she hadn't told him about our family situation. Clearing my throat, I decided to address it directly. "Chloe might not have mentioned this, but I'm divorced. I raised her on my own," I explained. For a brief moment, Nathan's friendly smile disappeared, and his face went blank. "What's wrong?" I asked, feeling uneasy. Nathan quickly recovered, smiling again. "Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it," he said, but his earlier reaction lingered in my mind. The rest of the meeting went smoothly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan might have concerns about our situation. After they left, I asked Chloe, what did Nathan say about me being a single mother? Did he mention anything on the way home? Chloe hesitated before responding. "No, Mom, he didn't say much. Don't worry about it." But I couldn't help but worry. What if Nathan's family disapproved of Chloe marrying into a single-parent household? Was this going to cause problems for them later? Only time would tell. "Mom," Chloe called out as soon as she walked through the door. Her voice sounded serious, and her face was unusually dark. I immediately noticed that something was wrong. "Chloe, what's the matter? You look so upset," I asked, concerned. Chloe stayed silent for a moment, which was very unlike her. She was usually cheerful and optimistic, so seeing her like this made me worry even more. After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice low and hesitant. "Actually, Mom, it seems Nathan's family isn't very happy about our marriage," she said, her expression filled with sadness. I frowned, confused and concerned. Why would they feel that way? What's the problem? Chloe sighed deeply, looking down at her hands. They think Nathan will have a hard time because we're poor. And because we're from a single-parent household. I felt like someone had just slapped me. My chest tightened with anger and hurt. "That's such a terrible thing to say," I said, my voice rising slightly. "How could they judge us like that without even knowing us?" Chloe nodded silently, her face looking more defeated with every second. "It's not just that, Mom. Nathan's mother said those things directly," and she hesitated for a moment before continuing. "His sister said we're only after Nathan's money." "What?" I exclaimed, shocked. "That's an awful accusation. They don't even know me. How could they think such horrible things about us?" Chloe's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "It's so unfair, Mom. I don't care about their money. I work hard just like Nathan does." Hearing this, my heart broke for her. Chloe had grown up seeing me work day and night to provide for us. We had faced many challenges as a single-parent family, but we had come so far. To be insulted like this, as if we were greedy or worthless, felt incredibly painful. I took a deep breath to calm myself before asking, "What did Nathan say about all of this? Did he defend you?" Chloe looked up at me and nodded. "He did. He told them that I'm not like that and that I have a stable job. He even reminded them that we work at the same company, so it's not like I depend on him financially." That gave me some relief. "Well, at least Nathan stood up for you." "That's important," I said. "As long as he's on your side, it's a good sign. But Chloe, you need to be prepared. If his family already thinks this way, it might not stop after the wedding." A few days later, Chloe approached me again. This time, her expression was more apologetic than sad. "Mom," she began hesitantly, "Nathan's mother suggested we have a family meeting before the wedding." I raised an eyebrow, feeling uneasy. "A family meeting? What kind of meeting?" "She said it's common sense for you to meet Nathan's parents properly before the wedding," Chloe explained. She even chose the place, a fancy restaurant near their house. I frowned. "And what did Nathan's mother say about it?" Chloe sighed. "She told me it would be inappropriate for us to meet at their house, since we're not officially married yet. She also chose a very expensive restaurant. The meal costs $500 per person." I couldn't hide my shock. $300 per person? That's outrageous. Why would she choose such an expensive place? And why isn't she hosting us at her home? That's what people usually do for family introductions. Chloe looked embarrassed. "I know, Mom. It's uncomfortable for me too, but I didn't want to argue. Nathan even said he'd reimburse us later if it's too much." Her words made me feel uneasy, but I didn't want to make things harder for her. "All right," I finally said. "If it's important to you, we'll go. But Chloe, I want you to know that this kind of behavior isn't normal. They're not being respectful." On the day of the meeting, I dressed modestly on purpose. I didn't want to give Nathan's family any reason to think I was flashy or careless with money. I wore simple clothes and applied just a bit of makeup. When Chloe and I arrived at the restaurant, we were escorted to a private room. Inside, Nathan's family was already waiting. Nathan greeted us warmly. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Robinson." "Thank you for having us," I replied politely, but I could already feel the tension in the room. Nathan's mother, Linda, and his sister, Ray, were sitting stiffly, their expressions cold. Nathan's father, Michael, barely glanced in my direction. It was obvious that they weren't happy to see us. I introduced myself with a smile, trying to ease the tension. "It's a pleasure to meet all of you. I'm Sarah, Chloe's mother." Linda didn't return my smile. Instead, she leaned back in her chair and said with a smirk, "I hope this meeting clears up everything. Honestly, I think this marriage is a mistake." My stomach dropped. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep my composure. "You're from a single-parent family," Linda said bluntly. "That's already a problem. And judging by how plain your outfit is, it's clear you're struggling financially." Ray chuckled beside her. "Poor Nathan," she said mockingly. "He could have married someone decent, but instead, he stuck with a poor mother and daughter." I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. Their words cut deep, but I refused to let them see how much they hurt me. "We may not have much," I said calmly, "but Chloe and I have worked hard to build a good life. We don't need anyone's money." Linda laughed cruelly. "That's easy to say. But actions speak louder than words, don't they?" Nathan, to his credit, tried to intervene. "Mom, that's enough," he said firmly. "Chloe and her mother deserve respect." But Linda just waved him off. "I'm only speaking the truth," she said. "If you marry Chloe, you'll be taking on their burdens. You'd be making a huge mistake." As the meeting went on, their insults and judgments didn't stop. I stayed polite for Chloe's sake, but deep down, I knew this family would never accept us. I began to worry about what kind of life Chloe would have if she married into such a toxic environment. I felt irritated by Rachel's mocking comment. Her words were far too rude for a first meeting, but I held back. I didn't want to risk causing problems for Chloe's marriage. "Excuse me," I said quietly, taking my seat even though anger bubbled inside me. Perhaps because I didn't respond to their rude remarks, Nathan's family seemed amused. They exchanged smug glances, as though they were enjoying putting me down. Chloe looked at me with worry in her eyes, while Nathan's expression grew tense, his brows furrowing. He seemed uncomfortable with his family's behavior, though he didn't say anything yet. Linda, on the other hand, was clearly in high spirits. "We've reserved a multi-course meal here," she announced excitedly. "It's $500 per person." "Really? I can't wait. The food here is so expensive. It must be amazing," Rachel chimed in, practically giddy with excitement. Michael nodded in agreement, a satisfied smile on his face. Soon, the staff began bringing out the dishes. Each plate was beautifully presented, with vibrant and colorful appetizers. It was clear that this was a high-end dining experience. However, when I looked down at my own place setting, all I had was a glass of water. No food, just water. I was confused and looked around for the staff, but they had already left the room. My stomach sank as I realized what was happening. Nathan noticed immediately. He looked stunned, staring at the empty space in front of me. Meanwhile, Rachel burst into mocking laughter. "Oh, look at that. How fitting," she sneered. Chloe leaned closer to me, her voice filled with concern. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked quietly. Before I could respond, Linda laughed loudly, her tone cruel. "Poor people can manage with just water," she said, clearly taking pleasure in humiliating me. Her words were so vulgar, so unnecessary, that I couldn't stop myself. "What does this mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. But inside, I was fuming. They had invited us to this restaurant, yet they didn't even plan to serve me properly? It was an insult, plain and simple. Linda shrugged, her smirk widening. "Oh, not only are you a poor single mother, but are you also stupid? Did you really think someone like you would be welcomed here?" Michael chuckled, nodding along with her. "Don't you feel ashamed to be a single mother? A woman left by her husband, trying to survive on her own? How pitiful," he added, his words dripping with disdain. My jaw clenched as I tried to contain my anger. It wasn't that my husband left me, I began, but Michael interrupted.
Oh, sure.
But let's be honest, a woman like you isn't needed anywhere. You're plain, flawed, and unnecessary, he said with a cruel laugh. Rachel joined in, shaking her head. I'd hate to end up like Chloe's mother, she said, her tone mocking. Working for low wages and struggling just to get by. It's honestly so pathetic. Chloe, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Mom, I'm so sorry, she said softly, her voice trembling. Her eyes were full of tears, and I could see how deeply she was blaming herself for putting me in this situation. She looked down, avoiding everyone's gaze. That was it. I had reached my limit. I couldn't let these people look down on me or my daughter any longer. Before I could say anything, however, Nathan stood up abruptly. Enough already, he shouted, his voice echoing in the private room. His face was red with anger. All of you, ganging up on Chloe's mother like this, aren't you ashamed of yourselves? You're adults, for heaven's sake. Chloe and I both looked at Nathan, surprised by his sudden outburst. He had always seemed calm and composed, but now he was clearly furious. Linda, however, wasn't fazed. She leaned back in her chair, still smirking. Oh, come on, she said dismissively. There's no need to defend poor people. Why are you getting so worked up? Michael nodded in agreement. Nathan, don't let your emotions get the better of you, he said. It's just the truth. There's no harm in pointing it out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These people weren't just rude, they were completely shameless. I was ready to fight back when something unexpected happened. Rachel, who had been laughing moments earlier, suddenly stopped. She stared at me, her face going pale. Her hands trembled slightly as she muttered, "Oh no, it can't be." Her strange reaction caught everyone's attention. Michael frowned, looking at his daughter. What's wrong with you? Why are you acting so weird? He asked, confused. Even Linda seemed concerned. Rachel, you're as pale as a ghost. Are you feeling okay? She asked, leaning closer. But Rachel didn't respond to them. She kept staring at me, her face filled with shock. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Dad, your company, it's called Globecrafts, right? Michael looked even more confused. Of course it is, he replied. Why are you bringing that up now? Rachel hesitated before continuing, her voice shaky. I think I've met Chloe's mother before at our company. Michael laughed, shaking his head. That's impossible. I know every employee in my company, including part-timers. There's no older woman like her working there. I frowned at the term older woman, but I held back, waiting to see where this was going. Rachel took a deep breath.
No, Dad.
She's not an employee. She's one of our company's clients. The room fell silent. Michael's expression changed from smug to confused. What are you talking about? Our clients? Even Linda, who had been so confident, looked uneasy. What do you mean by a client? Explain yourself, Rachel. Rachel glanced at me nervously before turning back to her father. Chloe's mother isn't just any client. She's one of the biggest clients we have. I didn't recognize her at first because she's dressed so modestly today, but I'm sure of it now. Michael's smug expression disappeared entirely. What are you saying? He asked, his voice quieter now. Are you trying to tell me that she's? I smiled slightly, watching their reactions unfold. It seemed they were finally realizing that the person they had been mocking might not be as insignificant as they thought. I hadn't spoken directly to Michael before, so it made sense that he wouldn't recognize me. As I thought about this, Rachel suddenly stood up and began to apologize. Chloe's mother, I'm really sorry for everything that happened, she said, her voice trembling. Her unexpected apology made the atmosphere in the room shift. Michael and Linda looked confused, then quickly agitated. Why are you apologizing? Linda snapped, her voice sharp and defensive. There's no need to say sorry to someone so beneath us. That's right. Michael chimed in, glaring at Rachel. Don't you have any pride? Apologizing to a poor woman like this is ridiculous. But Rachel wasn't intimidated. She turned to her parents, her expression suddenly serious. Dad, Mom. Chloe's mother isn't poor at all. In fact, she's much wealthier than any of us, especially Dad. Michael's face twisted in disbelief. What are you talking about? He asked, his voice rising. He glared at Rachel as if she had lost her mind. Linda, on the other hand, reacted with shock. What did you just say? She shrieked. How dare you say something so absurd? Rachel, clearly resigned to the situation, didn't back down. Because it's true, she said firmly. Chloe's mother is the president of a very successful company. I've seen her before at Dad's office. I even served her tea in the company's reception room. Michael froze, his confident demeanor cracking as he stared at Rachel.
What?
That can't be true, he exclaimed, but his voice was quieter now, filled with doubt. You've heard of Robinson's Bags, haven't you, Dad? Rachel asked. The mention of the name made Michael's face turn pale. He slowly turned his head toward me, his expression a mix of fear and disbelief. I smiled slightly, keeping my composure. Michael's reaction told me he recognized the name. Linda, however, looked puzzled. Robinson's Bags, she muttered, trying to place it. Then her eyes widened as the realization hit. Wait, that's the brand sold in all the high-end department stores, isn't it? Even my bag is from there. She quickly picked up the bag she had brought with her and examined it closely, as if needing proof. I couldn't help but comment. That bag, I said with a calm smile, was a magazine giveaway, wasn't it? I'm honored you're using my brand. Linda's face turned bright red with embarrassment. She placed the bag back under her chair, unable to meet my gaze. At that moment, I reached into my bag and pulled out my business card. Handing it to Michael, I introduced myself. I'm Sarah Robinson, the president of Robinson's Bags. Michael took the card with trembling hands, staring at it as if it were a bomb. Linda leaned over to read it, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Neither of them seemed able to speak. I didn't expect this, Michael finally said, his voice shaky. You're the president? That's right, I replied calmly. We were in talks to collaborate with Globecrafts on a new line of bags. But given the way you've treated me and Chloe, I don't think that collaboration will be happening anymore. What a shame. Michael's face went white. Wait, no. You can't cancel the collaboration, he stammered. It's the most important project we have right now. If it's canceled, our company will. He stopped mid-sentence, his voice trembling. What's going on? Linda asked, clearly confused. She looked between Michael and me, trying to make sense of the situation. Michael sighed heavily, his voice now filled with desperation. The truth is, Globecrafts is in serious financial trouble. Sales have been declining for years because fewer people buy handmade goods now. Cheap, ready-made products have taken over the market. This collaboration with Robinson's Bags was supposed to save the company. He turned to me, his face now pale and drenched in sweat. Please, Ms. Robinson, he said, bowing slightly. I'm deeply sorry for how I acted. I beg you to reconsider. His sudden apology caught everyone off guard. Chloe and Nathan both looked surprised, while Linda seemed completely lost. Why are you apologizing to her? She demanded, still not grasping the severity of the situation. But I wasn't moved by Michael's words. His apology wasn't sincere. It was simply an attempt to protect himself and his company. An apology now? I said coldly. After everything you've said to me and Chloe, do you really think a simple sorry will fix this? Michael's face crumpled as he realized his apology wasn't enough. Desperate, he stood up, clearly trying to save face. Linda, now visibly uncomfortable, turned to me with a forced smile. Well, since we're going to be family, she said in a light, flippant tone, you'll forgive us, right? I stared at her, stunned by her audacity. Before I could respond, she added, oh, and since I'm such a big fan of Robinson's Bags, you'll be giving me some products for free, won't you? After all, we're family now. Her words were so ridiculous that I didn't know how to respond at first. I just stared at her, speechless. Nathan, however, wasn't having it. Mom, that's completely inappropriate, he said firmly. You've gone too far. Even Linda seemed taken aback by Nathan's stern tone. But she quickly recovered, her eyes darting between him and me. "I don't see what's so wrong with that," she muttered defensively. "I'm just asking for a small favor." Nathan shook his head, his expression filled with disappointment. "This is exactly why Chloe and I didn't want this meeting in the first place," he said. "You've done nothing but insult her and her mother. I'm ashamed of the way you've behaved." For the first time, Linda looked genuinely embarrassed. She glanced down at her hands, unable to meet my gaze. Michael, on the other hand, remained frozen, still clutching my business card as if it were his lifeline. I took a deep breath, standing up slowly. "Chloe and I deserve respect, not apologies born out of desperation," I said, my voice calm but firm. "This meeting is over." With that, I turned to Chloe, who looked relieved but still shaken. "Let's go," I said gently. Together, we walked out of the restaurant, leaving Nathan's family to deal with the mess they had created. But Linda, still not understanding the situation, said with a dismissive tone, "Why not? There must be plenty of stock, right? It wouldn't hurt to give away a few." Her arrogance was astonishing. Michael and Rachel looked at her with dismay, clearly uncomfortable with her attitude. I kept my composure and replied firmly, "Our products aren't free to give away, especially not to strangers. After all, you are not family to me." Linda looked frustrated by my response. "But Chloe and Nathan are getting married, right? That makes us family. A family should support one another financially, and you're the president of a successful company, aren't you?" she said with a straight face, as if her earlier insults and mockery had never happened. I was stunned by her audacity. After all the disdain and arrogance, this was her attitude now. It was clear she had no remorse for her previous behavior. Before I could respond, Nathan finally lost his patience. "Mom," he shouted, his face red with anger. "You completely changed your attitude the moment you found out Chloe's mom is the president of a company. Aren't you ashamed of yourself?" But Linda just laughed, unfazed by his outburst. "It doesn't matter," she said with a shrug. "A president must have more money than they know what to do with. Why not share a little with us?" Her words were infuriating, but I kept my cool. "Even if Chloe and Nathan get married, I have no intention of forming any ties with you," I said calmly. Linda, surprised by my response, tried to cozy up to me again. "Oh, don't say that. Once Nathan marries Chloe, we'll be family. It's no big deal to give away a bag or two, is it?" she said, her tone as if she were asking for a small favor. I opened my mouth to retort, but Nathan stepped between us. "Mom," he said firmly, looking directly at Linda. "This has gone too far. You've insulted Chloe's mother repeatedly, and now you're trying to take advantage of her. I've had enough." Nathan turned to me, his expression troubled. "Ms. Robinson, I need to admit something. I knew you were the president of Robinson's Bags, but I didn't tell my parents. I knew they would try to exploit you if they found out." Michael looked shocked. "You knew? Why didn't you tell me?" "If I had known," Nathan interrupted, his gaze cold. "If you had known, you would have acted just like Mom, wouldn't you? Taking advantage of her position." Michael's face turned red with anger. "How dare you speak to your parents like that? If you keep this up, you'll be disowned," he shouted. Chloe, puzzled and worried, glanced between Nathan and his father. But Nathan remained calm. He sighed deeply and declared, "That's fine. I'm willing to be disowned if it means protecting Chloe and her mom. I don't need a family that disrespects the people I care about." Linda was stunned. "Why would you say such a thing?" she cried, shaking. "After everything we've done to raise you?" Michael and Rachel stood frozen, unable to respond. They clearly hadn't expected Nathan to say he'd cut ties with them. Nathan's voice softened as he continued, "I want to cherish Chloe going forward. I don't need a family that disregards her or Sarah." Hearing this, Linda collapsed into tears. Michael and Rachel just stood there, dumbfounded. Losing their beloved son was clearly devastating for them, but they had brought it upon themselves. I looked at them with a slight smile and said, "Live with your regrets. I'm sure you'll struggle in the future." Chloe, emboldened by Nathan's words, added firmly, "We won't even tell you if we have children." Her words struck like a dagger. Linda wailed, "Please, spare us that. but Chloe stood her ground. Ignoring their pleas, Chloe, Nathan, and I left the restaurant together. Afterward, I learned that Michael and Rachel were fired from Globe Crafts the very next day. I had informed the company president that I wanted to cancel the collaboration. While the president tried to persuade me to reconsider, I remained firm. I cannot collaborate with a company that employs people capable of such disdainful behavior, I explained. The president, who had a daughter around Chloe's age, was furious when he heard what Michael and Rachel had done. Their actions had ruined an important collaboration that could have saved the struggling company. Michael and Rachel were let go immediately. Without their jobs, Michael and Rachel's lives became difficult. Michael, already older, found it nearly impossible to secure a new position. Rachel, who had only worked part-time thanks to her father's connections, was also unable to find work. Linda, a housewife, had no income of her own and was now cut off from Nathan's support. Months later, they came to my company in desperation. "Please collaborate with Globe Crafts," they begged. "If you do, the president will rehire us. And if not a collaboration, at least provide financial support. Our family is suffering." Their pleas were pathetic, considering how they had treated me and Chloe before. "Families help each other out," Linda added, her voice trembling. I couldn't help but laugh. "After calling us poor and looking down on us, now you're suddenly families?" I said coldly. "Neither a collaboration nor financial support is possible. And as you know, Nathan has already severed ties with you. Please leave." But they didn't move, trying to cling to any hope. Finally, I said firmly, "If you don't leave now, I'll call the police." Hearing this, Michael panicked. "Please, no. We'll go. We won't come back again," he said, pulling Linda with him. Their clothes were worn and dirty, a clear sign of their declining situation. It was ironic. They had once scorned others as poor, but now they were living in poverty themselves. Rachel, I later heard, became a shut-in, unable to find work or move forward in life. She spent her days in despair, her future bleak. 3 years have passed since then. Chloe, Nathan, and I now live together. While it's common for newlyweds to live on their own, Nathan insisted, "I think it's safer for Chloe to be with you, in case anything happens." Despite his busy work schedule, Nathan helps with household chores alongside Chloe. I'm truly grateful for how caring he is. One day, Chloe approached me with a serious expression. "Mom," she said, making me feel anxious. "Is everything okay?" I asked nervously. Then her face broke into a joyful smile. "It looks like I'm going to be a mom," she announced, gently stroking her belly. My heart swelled with happiness. "That's wonderful, Chloe. Congratulations," I said, hugging her tightly. Nathan stood beside her, smiling warmly. As I imagined our happy future together with a grandchild on the way, a natural smile spread across my face. Whatever challenges come our way, I'm confident we'll overcome them as a family.